Okay, so here I'm in conversation with Ante, who is a counselor, who's a student counselor in a school which is a public school in Finland,
Yes.
and this school is called
Uh, School is called Pasila Elementary.
Pasila Elementary. It's a Pasila Elementary School, and very interestingly, I was speaking to Ante about Indian politics on the way, and it is extremely interesting to know his interest about Indian politics, and I'm very excited to talk about Congress, BJP, and Aam Aadmi Party. It was fun, but this conversation not about politics. Right now, we will be talking about teachers and motivation of teachers and job of a counselor. So just let's start with you. How did you decided to be a teacher?
Teaching has always been something that I've been considering. When I was weighing my options in the high school, I was repeatedly commented by my teachers that I'm a pretty good public speaker. And I knew that, okay, the teaching could be a good career for me, or a priest, but teaching would seem to fit my personality better.
Okay, so I'll second this because I've seen this in your classes today. You are a wonderful public speaker. And what is actually the job of the counselor in a school?
Yeah, ironically, counselor doesn't really get to speak that much because our main focus is to listen to our students, and they will tell us about their plans for the future pretty much. And we will offer counsel to tell them where they can find more information if they are lacking information, or give motivation if they are lacking motivation, and so on.
So it is more about career choices, or is it also about personal sometime, trying to find, like it can be their personal problems or something like that, or is it always about career choices, subject choices?
The focus is on studying and career. We have another counselor, the guidance counselors, about your personal problems, and I work as a study counselor.
Okay, so that is really interesting that that there's a counselor for personal issues also.
Yes.
Okay, really perfect. So as we were discussing it before, can you please comment on how rural urban schools are working differently? Is there a disparity in terms of finding better teachers in rural areas also, or is it not? And if it is not, how is it being tackled in Finnish education?
Yeah, the rural-urban divide is not so bad in Finland as it in many other countries, largely because very many Finns still have a rural background, and many people come to urban centers to study for university, but later they will return to their home roots, so to say, and therefore there is a steady influx of teachers. The main problem for returning back to rural homes is lack of jobs, but teachers will always have jobs. In many places there are better job opportunities for teachers in rural areas than in urban areas.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Because in large university cities there are, of course, tens or hundreds of teachers coming out every year. And that's more than the university cities really need. So if you want to have a steady job as a young teacher, your best bet often is to go outside the city.
That is really interesting, and I think it's a very good way to tackle the rural-urban divide also in terms of education. And what about the resources? Like, are the rural schools equally resourceful in terms of infrastructure, in terms of building and libraries, books, technology?
Not really, because the areas can pretty much allocate how much do they want to spend on education and how much not. And usually the bigger cities put more resources in education than the smaller smaller communes.
So this is interesting. Now I need to know a little more about as far as academic subject teaching, science, maths content is concerned, it's one way. But what about emotional development of students? Like in India, I'll tell you, in Indian society, everyone faces a lot of social problems. Everyone has their own social problems. The larger population of our country faces multiple kind of problems. I do not want to cannot mention them all. But the other side of it is that it makes everyone very emotionally strong to fight with their life conditions. Here I'm finding that life is a little more comfortable, and there is a support system available for everything. So in these conditions, what is that school and education system is doing to make students more emotionally strong to face their life problems?
This is a big issue in Finnish schools. As you said, we have such a strong support net that it can make people complacent and have mental diseases such as depression are a big problem. And we've been tackling this for the next, let's say, 10 years, more or less actively. There are some subject matters in school, like health education and, of course, the counseling itself, that are focused on teaching ways to improve the students' mental health and emotional well-being. But the main thrust right now is trying to empower the students in their studies themselves, so that instead of studying being the old idea of teacher telling information to students who passively absorb the information, now we want to empower the students and make them go out and find the information. Not just because of the 21st century skills, as they say, but also because of their mental resilience. It makes them more ready to tackle the problems in the real world.
It's really interesting because it is something which was clicking in my mind for the last 4 or 5 days as I'm going to schools and teachers. So a few more short questions. One is what is the student counselor ratio here? Within how many students there's a counselor?
It's supposed to be about one counselor per 200 kids. Yeah. In some schools we reach that limit, like in our school it's perfectly balanced. But I have some colleagues who have 300 or even 400 students.
So how do you balance the time then? Like, is that students book appointments kind of and then it happens, or is it like you reach out to students finding out problems within them?
It's both. It's really. I have an appointment calendar online that the students can themselves make an appointment with me. But especially with the students who have the biggest problems, they don't reach out to any adults. They are often really passive and don't really make an active choice to reach out to someone. So you have to go and pick them up. And for that we need some work with other colleagues. I will need to know from other teachers that if they have found out that some student is really struggling or seems to have some issues about their studies, they will refer them to me and I will go and pick them up from their regular studies.
That is interesting. And is there any documentation, kind of a history maintained just to keep it going for the future purpose?
Not really as such, no, because we have a pretty tight privacy laws that we can't really do that kind of documentation. I will, of course, keep a record for myself, but this will be shredded after a year or so.
Obviously, means at least for yourself. And also, I just want to know that how does the transfer thing works? Is it like if you are in this school, for how many years you will be in this school and then will move out to other school, or kind of How does it work?
Yeah, so the elementary school is 9 years. You start when you're 7 years old, and you should finish when you are about 16 years old, if all goes as planned. And it's divided to the lower elementary school, which is the first 6 years, and the upper elementary school, which is 3 years. And then the elementary school finishes, and they will proceed to the secondary school. And all the time that they're in elementary school, we can transfer records from one school to another. But when they go to the secondary school, that's where the line comes, and we really can't tell the next level anything about the students, other than if the students give us permission. Then.
Just to tweak this question a little more for teachers. So how it goes with teachers? So if you are a teacher teaching in this school, is it like you'll be teaching lifetime in this school only, or it could be transferred?
Well, basically, some teachers are employed only for a couple of years at a time, but others are basically employed for life. We are civil servants, really, and pretty much unfireable.
That's quite a pleasure to know.
At least as long as we don't break any rules and regulations or laws, of course.
That is perfect. So, so being a civil servant working in a school, is it like you can be transferred to other public schools also? Or?
That's possible, and that happens from time to time. If, for example, if a school will have much less students than before, and they don't need that many teachers anymore, sometimes teachers are transferred. Yeah.
And it happens in it goes like from rural to urban to rural?
No, it's within the city.
It is within the city.
The counties are pretty independent in this regard. So I'm teaching in this city. I could be transferred to another city school, but not outside the city.
Okay. That is interesting. So just to close down the discussion, one last question, I think. How do you see the part of the balance between skill development, and the academic education in Finnish education?
I think we have a better balance than in many other countries that I've heard of, but I'm not still quite happy. I would emphasize the skills much more than we have right now, because our kids are doing very well academically, as the international comparisons have shown us. But they seem to be lacking some skills that people have in other countries. Not just trade skills and so on, but skills like entrepreneurship, life skills in general, mental health skills and so on.
Maybe the thing we were discussing, the emotional strength and all. It's really interesting. Okay, thank you. So it was a wonderful speaking to you, and thanks a lot for your time. And
thank you.
I would just like to acknowledge this on air that I was sitting in his class, and he's a brilliant teacher. He was like using technology to teach mathematics, and it was really amazing to see how. In a public school, technology is used so well in a classroom to engage students, and it was really great to see. And I hope we very soon will be doing it in Indian public schools too. So it was wonderful talking to you. Thank you. Thanks a lot.